One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Hey, Profit Podcast community. I'm so excited about today's bonus episode because there's a lot of podcasting notes that you're going to take away from this, but there's also some really cool stories. This episode is really cool because we created this interview before the Profit Podcast was even a thing. But while I was in the middle of my journey of creating a digital course for entrepreneurs to learn how to podcast, and I'm so happy to share with you the success that Katelyn has had with her own podcast. And y'all, she is just a success story that if you find a great niche and you know that there are you have the answers to questions that people are asking, holy cow, you can skyrocket to success with your podcast. So I won't keep you waiting any longer. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut / time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? Hey, you. Yeah, you. Yes, Yes, I'm talking to you. Do you see? Yeah, okay. So are you looking to start a podcast in 2019? But you're thinking, I don't know what I'd talk about. It's like, I have no idea even where to get started. Don't even let that thought overwhelm you, because guess what? I've done all the work for you. I've actually created a workbook that has 500 podcast ideas for any industry. That's right, 500. Actually, it's over 500. I think it's like 554 for any kind of podcast. I specifically created this tool for entrepreneurs who aren't sure if podcasting is right for them. They say, well, I have a blank, insert any kind of industry, business. Will a podcast work for me? My answer, 99.99999% of the time, is yes, a podcast will totally work for that kind of business. So let's say you're in personal finance or real estate or business or marketing or technology or beauty and fashion or pet services or life coaching or parenting or any other number of industries. I've got you covered. Let me show you some podcast ideas that I have for you to get started. You can go to crystalprofit.com/500 podcast ideas. That's Crystal with a K, Profit with 2 F's and 2 T's. crystalprofit.com/500 podcast ideas, and you can grab this free, 100% free download today. So our guest today has a super cool story. She has a journey that is just so interesting, and I've loved getting to know Katelyn over the last few months, and we've gone back and forth in so many Facebook messengers that we're just like, hey, what do you think about this? And, can I get your opinion on that? And I've just loved seeing her come into her own and take things that she is so passionate about and turn it into this platform that helps other moms feel secure about their decisions of having their babies at home. So let me tell you about our guest today. It's Katelyn Fusco, and she describes herself as a wife, mother, a home birth advocate, and a general enthusiast. She's the creator and the host of the podcast Happy Homebirth, which is a podcast dedicated to support, encourage, and educate women in all things home birth and motherhood. Katelyn and her family live in Greenville, South Carolina, and you can learn more about her by going to myhappyhomebirth.com or following her on Instagram at Happy Homebirth Podcast. But let's get right into my interview with Katelyn Fusco. All right, rookie podcast listeners, I'm so excited to introduce you today to Katelyn. So welcome to the show, Katelyn.
Hey there, Crystal. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so it's fun. Katelyn and I were just chatting. She is a podcaster, so it's fun to talk to another podcaster. So let's kind of just get started there. We're all about, sharing our rookie stories and our journeys. So if you can just share with the audience what you do and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Sure. Well, let me just tell you, I am a total rookie, like fresh out of the womb rookie, because I just started my podcast in January, actually, was the launch date. So, yeah, Crystal, I have you to thank for a lot of this, because I actually was in a Facebook business group that you're in, Elevate Like a Boss. And I saw an interview that you did with Jackie Lomenzo, one of the creators of the group, and you were talking about your podcast. And I had been considering, and we can get into the story later, but I had been considering doing a podcast, but just wasn't ready to take the leap, I hadn't convinced myself, okay, you can do this, you can figure it out. And you said, you were interviewed a few days ago and you were like, everything is figure outable. That was a quote that you gave, and I loved that. And I was like, okay, fine. I can do this. I'm going to figure it out. And so that kind of put the wind underneath my wings, and I started really searching and digging and figuring out, how am I going to make this happen? So I joined a free webinar through Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, which I think you had said that you did something similar.
I endorse that. Yes, I 100% endorse that. If you want to start podcasting, go watch that immediately.
It was very, very helpful. He had some really cool tips. And so I did that and I kind of followed his tips. And so my background is that before I got pregnant, I was working as a midwife's apprentice. So I am in the home birth realm, which is very, very niche. Like not everybody's into that. Not everybody's into natural birth and especially giving birth in your living room. So I recognize that, but that's what my passion is. And I had, after working as an apprentice, I had my daughter at home, my first daughter, and I'm now pregnant with our second child, and we plan to have a home birth again. So that's just what I love. And I realized, it would have been awesome to have had a podcast to listen to while I was pregnant, to hear some motivational stories, some positive, encouraging birth stories to make me feel not alone because less than 1% of the population gives birth at home in the United States. So
wow.
Yeah, so you're a small minority. So I just wanted something that I would like. I wanted to give that to other women because I figured if I want it, I bet other women will want that. So yeah, so I had something that I really wanted to do. I had a message that I really wanted to get out. And so from there, it was just figuring out, okay, well, what does that look like? What do I do? How do I get from this idea to actually getting it out there? So that has been an interesting experience, and you were such a great sounding board for me. You answered so many questions via Facebook Messenger. I was so grateful. So it's really cool to come full circle and be on your podcast.
Yes, I was so excited. Just for the record, Katelyn she would ask a question and then she'd be like, I hope I'm not asking too much. And I'm like, no, because this is what I wish I would have had when I first started podcasting. I kind of went out in the dark and was just Googling and YouTubing everything. It took me 2 months, of full-blown research to get my podcast off the ground. So I totally, and that's what, a lot of what I do, with teaching podcasting and doing this podcast is I love sharing the things that I learn with other people. So I'm so grateful that you said that. That's very sweet. But I love helping other rookies out. That's what we're all about here, right?
Absolutely. And it's so amazing that you do have a course. It's so cool because now all of that information is, in one place and people can just go and get through your course. And I've heard amazing things about it. So I'm really, really grateful that you have put that together for people that are interested.
Well, thank you so much. That's so sweet. But I want to get back to your podcast and just everything that you're doing. So you said, before, this was a passion before you even had your kids or, before you got pregnant, before anything like that. So what does that journey look like? Is this something that, you thought of when you were a teenager? I want to help women have babies. Or was this just one day, tell us that journey, how that came to be.
Yeah. So that's a good one. It's kind of long. So correct me if I'm meandering too long. But so basically what happened was I graduated from Clemson University in 2013 with a degree in American Sign Language. Obviously, that makes so much sense.
Yes, it's perfect segue. Yes.
And I loved learning sign language. I just loved learning, but I loved acquiring a skill like that. It was incredible. But turns out I didn't super love being an interpreter, which is what I was doing. And my perspective on life had really started shifting at that point because I had gotten sick during college. I didn't really like college and I tried to get through it as fast as I possibly could. So I actually graduated in 3 years and experienced some pretty bad health issues because of it, some chronic fatigue. I ended up having a stomach ulcer that was related to parasites because I wasn't eating well, which I thought I was eating well, but that's a whole nother story. So what I ended up doing was I had seen some advertisement about the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So that's a health coaching program. I decided I should be a health coach. I love fitness. I love eating healthy. I love helping people. This is perfect. So I enrolled in the program. That is where I met Jackie Lomenzo, who is the creator of Elevate Like a Boss. We somehow, this is just God, I think, but we were connected and we became health coach partners. So we talk to each other every week or two and practice with each other. And part of that program, you're supposed to kind of figure out business-wise, what are you wanting to focus in? And my heart just was drawn towards the idea of helping pregnant women. And pregnant women, that is important. But really what I was thinking was, if I can help these women change their eating styles and their eating habits, then that's going to set this whole next generation up for success. So my goal was kind of, really helping the future too. So once I finished my health coaching degree certificate, I reached out to some local midwives.
And so what year was this?
This was 2014. Sorry, 2014. Okay. So that's when I reached out to these midwives, and luckily I just pulled up the DHEC website and went down the list, found the midwives and just went down the list and called them all. I was like, hey, do you have people that you think would work with me? And the reason I selected midwives was I just felt like they would be more open to it than a traditional doctor.
Right.
And it happened to be that the first one that picked up the phone was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm looking for this. I don't have time to teach my clients what they need to know. And so many of them need help. And so I ended up working with her, and I met up with her. I would come to some of their prenatals. I really just got involved in her birth world. And it wasn't long after being exposed to that I was like, oh, this is what I love. This is it. It's just being so involved in this monumental change in a woman's life. I mean, going from being pregnant to having a child, what a time. What a time, not only for health, but for so many things. And there's something just incredible about that. So that's when I decided, okay, I think actually I need to be a midwife. And I kind of put the health coaching stuff on hold. And my midwife was like, you know what, that's awesome. I think you would be great at this. I don't have an available apprenticeship right now because she had 2 at the time. But she was like, in the future, you can do that. Well, of course, that's just not how God works. And he opened a door and one of the apprentices needed to take time off because she was pregnant and she was going to be traveling. And so then I stepped in. And so that was, that was in 2015. Yep, 2015. And so I ended up, really 2016 was my first full year of apprenticing. And during that year, I got pregnant. So it was really neat because I got to kind of experience it from both sides. I was the midwife, but also I was the client. And that was a really, really cool thing for me. So once I went through my pregnancy and had my home birth, the emotions that you feel towards the person that cares for you at that time, you'll never forget it. You'll never forget, You never forget your birth. You never forget your labor. You never forget those people that surrounded you and loved you. And I haven't not thought about it since then. Every day something comes back to, oh, my birth and oh, my labor and my prenatal experience. And it was just so amazing. So that's what I was doing. And then I had Janie, my firstborn, and I kept working with my midwife. And then she actually told us, it was about 2 months after I had Janie, that she was going to be moving, which was heartbreaking. I mean, I could have lost my mind. It was so sad. Not only for oh, well, what am I going to do? But also who's going to catch my next baby?
Right.
Very selfishly. So she did move, and she is due any day now with her 5th child. So shout out to you, Elizabeth. But so she moved, and I ended up beginning to work with another local midwife who I love and who is my midwife this time around now that I'm pregnant again. So her practice though is very busy. She takes a lot of clients, especially now that the previous midwife moved. There's a lot of people looking for a midwife and there just aren't a lot of midwives. So I was working with her and, then my daughter hit toddlerhood. And she hit toddlerhood early. This was like, she was 1 and I was like, oh my word, you're a terror. Like, in the best way. She's amazing. She's incredible, but she's super smart. So it's my own downfall. Like she's just into it.
It's like, you just got to suffer through those years because you're like, this is a great quality, but oh my gosh, now.
You're going to be incredible if I make it to see it. Like that would be great. So with that being the case, in April of this past year is when I decided, okay, you gotta stop for now. This is not the time for you to be out all night, because that's the issue with midwifery is you never know when it's going to be. When are you going to get the call? When are you going to drop everything? And you don't know how long you're going to be gone. Luckily, I have in-laws that live a mile down the road and my parents are 30 minutes away. So it was great because I did have family close that could help, but still it's a lot to throw on somebody at 3:00 in the morning, like, hey, take my kid. So, and then I realized, hey, also you're not super great at being a mom when you've had no sleep, and it's just not your time. So that was kind of put on hold. And then I went through kind of like another separate journey after around that time. It was June. I weaned my daughter. So we had breastfed for 18 months. And so that was kind of emotional. But I had decided that I was going to do a fast at that time. So I did a few water fasts. I'm into every weird health thing ever. So just understand that about me. So I did a few water fasts. And then I had really heard about how they can be very spiritual. There aren't only, physical benefits to water fast, but there are spiritual benefits. And in the Bible, it doesn't say if you fast, it says when you fast. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do a fast for my mental, physical, and spiritual health. And it ended up being a really long fast. And during that time, I was praying a lot because I was not sleeping a lot, because when you're fasting, your body is kind of always in rest mode. And so you feel tired all the time, but you don't actually get to sleep very much. So I was praying kind of for God to just open up my eyes. Number one, I just did not have a lot of faith at that time. Like I believed, but I didn't feel it. And on one of the nights, all of a sudden after praying, I just felt my heart just on fire, basically. It really felt like it was fire. And I was like kind of laughing, crying at the same time. And like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is true belief and true faith. And so since that time, I have really been more in tune, and I ask for wisdom, and then I kind of just receive it, because if you ask it, you're going to get it. And one of the things that came up, I was praying like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I know I know that I can help somehow. How am I supposed to be helping? And it just kind of popped into my mind. At this point in the beginning, it was kind of unclear. Like, you should be like, is it a documentary? Should I be doing a documentary? What am I supposed to be doing? And then I heard your talk with Jackie about the podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like, this is it. And so everything kind of culminated all at the same time. And after that, it's just been door open, door open, door open, door open. Oh, there's not a door. Oh, here it is. Like it, just thing after thing after thing. And it's not me. Like I know it's not me because I can't do any of this. So it's just, I'm just listening and doing my best to execute it the way that it's supposed to be done.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Like, that's such a touching story. And it's so, such an amazing testimony that you have. Like you said, it's not you. And that's, I think that's a very humbling thing that, when you can know that for a fact, like not just kind of say, oh, well, maybe I kind of didn't know. It's like you've had opportunities or situations or success that you're like, oh my gosh, I never even, like I remember you announcing like, guys, like this, like apparently people want to hear about home births because it's just kind of taken off. So like kind of talk about that. Like what was your reaction like after? So how many episodes have you had now, and how long have you been doing this?
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
So I am editing episode number 10 today. So it'll air on Monday. I released 3 episodes at the very beginning, like when I first launched. And then it's been every week since then. And I also had a pilot episode that was just kind of like, hey, this is what's going to be coming down, your way. Right. And kind of back to what we were talking on, it's very freeing when you know it's not right. You, because like, okay, well, I can just do it. I'm not nervous to fail because it's not my thing. Like it's fine. I'll just do it. I don't have to be scared. Right. I can just do it. But yeah, so it was pretty crazy. I started my Instagram for the business for the podcast back in December, like mid-December. And people started following me, and I really wasn't even expecting that. I just, I don't know anything about marketing, and I still have a lot to learn. And I know that I do need to be, vigilant about that. There are things that I am going to have to learn and improve upon. But so I just started it. I started my Instagram, and I reached out to people and was like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful photo. I'm in natural home birth Facebook groups, and a lot of these photos are not being shared. So it's kind of new content. If I just reach out to the mom and say, hey, I love this. Do you mind if I put it on my Instagram? I'll tag you, and I'll tag your photographer. And I mean, rarely have I gotten a no. So I started that, and then I announced on December 1st, I released the pilot episode and kind of told people what was going on. And then I started contacting people in these groups saying, hey, I'm starting this podcast. Would you be interested in interviewing? And people were. So I started conducting the interviews. And then in January when it launched, I was definitely shocked at how people were consuming it and interested. And I was getting feedback from people that were like, whoa, this is so cool. And it's actually even people that were not necessarily interested in home birth are like, oh, well, now I'm kind of thinking about it after I hear these stories. And that's not even my main goal, but it's cool to expose hey, this is another option for you. Right. But so it started growing, and then really I didn't know how to gauge what was going on, honestly. I've never done this. I really don't know anything about podcasting. But I got towards the end of the month and realized it was a week before. I had one week left, and I realized I was at 700 and something downloads, and was like, I could potentially get 1,000 downloads in the opening month. And that to me feels like a huge thing. For some people, sure, maybe it's not, but I didn't have any audience at all before this. So I felt like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And when I looked at my analytics on iTunes, I realized it's not just people in this country that are listening. Australia is listening, the UK is listening. That's pretty cool. But so I that's when I wrote, hey, by the way, I'm putting out a bonus episode because I happened to be 20 weeks at that time, 20 weeks pregnant. I thought, well, this is a good time to tell everybody what my pregnancy has been like. And at the bottom, I was like, also, please be sure to share this because it seems like I could hit 1,000 downloads and you guys are really liking this. So make sure you share it with your favorite mom. And it was that episode and then the following one that just exploded. And so the night that was going into February, I just checked my stats real quick right before I went to bed, and I had 1,020, an extra 20 downloads. And so I had hit the goal, and it was just whoa, I would have never guessed that, I would have never guessed that on day one that I could do that. And so it's been really cool. And there's so much more growing that has to be done, or doesn't have to be done, but that I hope to accomplish. But I just feel so blessed and grateful and excited that this is where it is right now.
Well, and I want to, first of all, just say congratulations, because I think that, like you said, you had this idea, you saw this need of something that you wanted. Like, you knew you couldn't be the single pregnant woman or, mom that wished she would have had this content like in front of her or available. And you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to step out in faith. We'll just kind of see what happens. Maybe, somebody eventually will find me and like it. Like, but then you produce something that people really want. And then, so podcast listeners, we got interrupted by the toddler, which we knew that was going to happen at some point. No big deal. But, so going back to, I love, because your story sounds a lot like my story. Like, you thought, why not? Why don't I just do this? Like, do this thing that I know it's going to benefit someone. And I think because, like you said, like, you're 1% of the population, like, it's such a niche topic that a lot of people, it's not common for people to not only do this, but then talk about it. Like, I'm sure the groups that you're in aren't like millions of people. It's probably like, I'm sure that's still pretty big, a community, but it's like, this is what we do. And they share the good and the bad and the ugly, and then the wonderful miracle that is bringing a human into this world. Like, I think it's just such a cool thing, even though I did not have home births. I've had 3 babies, and they were all delivered at the hospital. I had an epidural. I was induced, like total opposites into the spectrum from you. But I can so much appreciate everything that you do and everything that you say, because I see the passion in you that you have to help out these other women.
And isn't that what it's about? Like, I love that. I love that. Okay, so that wasn't my way. Just like, that's totally cool, but still this idea of being able to support, know, like, it's so neat. And that's one thing that I've found to be pretty interesting is, some of my listeners are the same exact way, but it's like, oh, but these stories are really cool and really powerful. Right. And who doesn't love to hear how a mom becomes a mom? Right. And that's been one of the really cool things is finding people to interview. Oh, it's nothing, because who doesn't want to talk about their birth? Everybody loves it. And even the painful ones, even the difficult ones, the ones that didn't go the way we expected, there's still so much beauty in struggle. And people want that authenticity. People want to hear what really happened and how things went and how people felt. And I just think there is so much value in that, no matter what you choose. And I'm not only saying for home birth, of course, I'm saying for anybody that wants to start anything, there's so much value in every little thing that might seem like nothing to somebody else. Like, oh, home birth, I don't really care about that. Sure. But there is a group of people that absolutely do care. And the same could be said with like technology stuff that I have no idea about, like other people really care.
Right. And I just think it's such a cool thing, because whenever you announced, you're like, oh, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. I'm doing home births. And I immediately thought of, because I know, I guess like 2 or 3 people that I've known that have done it. Like, they had all of their babies at home and everything. Like, it was a beautiful story. And then I know a few celebrities that have done it. So this is like a quick aside. I love Jim Gaffigan, if you know who he is, the comedian. And he talks about, like, they have 5 kids, and they've had all 5 kids at home in their 2-bedroom New York City apartment. And like, so, and he jokes about it in his like comedic routines. And so I'm just like, okay, this is my experience with home birth. Like, I don't know a lot about it. So I do have some questions specifically about what I want to know is more about the experience, like the connection between the mom, the midwife. I thought about the husband, like tell me, I guess, what is that experience from being part of the midwife staff and then being the actual mom in the home birth?
So that's such a great question. And what I like to think about is the fact that your home birth experience does not start at your birth. Your home birth experience starts 9 months beforehand when you find out that you're pregnant and you decide, okay, I'm going to search for a midwife. I'm going to use a midwife. And that's one of the biggest draws to me about midwifery in general, is that you're never a number. You're never feeling rushed. You go into the consultation or the prenatal appointment and you've got, like, especially the first one, it's usually an hour to 2 hours long that you are talking with this person and meeting them and learning their heart and they're learning yours. And then from there, your prenatal appointments are long. You're talking about so much more than just like, oh, pee on this stick and okay, get out, like your blood pressure's fine. You know, there's such an intimate relationship and it is built for the whole 9 months. And so by the time you are at the birth, whether you're the mom or the midwife, I have felt just so much connection on both ends, so much connection and love for this person that's taking care of me. And then also so much connection and love for the person in front of me who's being vulnerable and who is sharing their fears and sharing the things that they're going through, whether they're a first-time mom and are nervous about this and that, or whether they are a mom to 3 little kids that are running around the room that we're, doing a prenatal in. And so I think that that's what builds so much trust and so much understanding. And I love when I would love, like as the midwife apprentice, when husbands got to come to and really be involved and you just know the entire family. And so then when you get to the birth, as a midwife, you feel comfortable because you know all of these things about this person. So if things aren't lining up, you can tell. And if there's a red flag, because you know this person. And as the client, this person, you know them and you trust them and you know that they are skilled and that they are going to be looking out for your best interest and that they care for you. They care for you so deeply. And so that established relationship allows for that openness that one might not feel if they have never met their doctor. There's so many practices that are so big, you might not know the person that's coming in and delivering your baby, which is fine because, there are nurses and nurses are typically there and able to help some. But still, like, there's something about that continuity of care and connection that is so meaningful. And it also really seems to put the partner at ease. Like, my husband was never worried because he was just like, oh yeah, this is just what we do,
right.
He's been along for all of my strange adventures. So I'm really grateful for his openness.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now he was telling one of his friends is having a child very soon. And he was like, I don't know what I would do if you didn't know everything. Well, I don't actually, but thanks.
You didn't have all this experience already.
Right. So that's really what I love about home birth and what drew me to it so much is that depth of not only knowledge, but the depth of love and compassion and woman to woman support. There's just nothing like that.
Right. And I totally 100% agree. And it's funny you said that about the connection between, the mom and the midwife, because personally with my first son, I was part of a practice where it was a rotating schedule, and I didn't meet my doctor that delivered my oldest son until, I guess, like a few hours before he was born. And It's funny because, the way things work, she actually ended up being the best one in the whole practice. So it was definitely like a godsend the way things worked out. But I mean, and I was a very young mom, so I was 22 when I had my son, and so I was scared to death. Like, I didn't know what was going on. We went through all these doctors, and shout out to the labor and delivery nurses because they did help me feel more comfortable. But oh my gosh, so the connection that I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I would have had that, because I did not whatsoever. The other two were a lot better as far as the care goes. Like, I knew my doctors better and everything, but there was never that kind of connection that you're talking about. Like, that really, you're in someone's home. Like, right. It's not like you're in an office somewhere. Like, you are actually in, how much more personal can you get? Like, you're in someone's home surrounded by their personal belongings or their family, their other children. Like, I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're a part of, and that it's so cool to see you sharing these stories of other women and their experiences. So I have a question that's, I guess, specifically related to your home birth experience. Did it surprise you with how strong you are?
Oh, yeah. So I'll just say my labor surprised me in every way. And that's just the crazy thing about birth is you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely was. I was under I don't know where I got this, but I was under the impression that I was going to have a pretty quick labor for a first-time mom. Like, it was going to be like about 6 hours, I
think everybody thinks that. Everyone has this idea of how it's going to go, and then it's usually the polar opposite.
Right. Well, because I did all the things. I did all the preparation, so of course it's going to be 6 hours. I saw my chiropractor. I drank my red raspberry leaf tea. I did my evening primrose oil. Like, yeah, no, that's not how it works, guys. Just letting you know. Coming from somebody who should absolutely know that still had to be put in my place of that's not how it works, sister. So, yeah, my labor was actually very long. It was really like 2 days. But the intense part, was more on the 24-hour side. And even then there were ebbs and flows. But it was surprising just because some of the things that I exhibited were things that I had not seen in other labors. Like, I am a puke monster. Sorry for people that don't want to talk about that. But it was like at one point towards the end, it was like every contraction. It was rough. So that was honestly, when I think back to like the idea of strength, it's like, yeah, because I threw up for hours and still did it.
Oh, yes, for sure. But my gosh.
That, and then I also look back. Luckily, I had a friend or a family member that was there to take some pictures and videos and kind of act as a doula, which I highly recommend a trained doula. But she got some videos of me pushing, and I'll never be able to make those sounds again. Like it's insane what the female body can do and is capable of. And then also the love that you experience in that moment when your baby is finally earthside is pretty unbelievable. And there's a video of me holding her for the first time. And honestly, like, I wouldn't watch it for a while because I watched it the first time and was embarrassed at the high pitch of my voice, and I was like sounding like a dolphin, like, you're here, you did so good, and like crying. I really did sound like a dolphin. And I was embarrassed about it for a while. And then a few weeks ago, I'm actually kind of trying to prep my daughter for our home birth coming up in June. And so I'm actually having her look at videos of some of my friends that have given birth naturally, and nothing like super scary or crazy, just like what natural birth is like. And I had her see those videos because I was like, okay, also mommy makes some pretty crazy noises, and you need to know that this is okay. And so now when she watches them, she tries to emulate the noises, which is hilarious. But in doing that, I heard that video again, and I heard the elation that was in my voice, and I realized that is nothing to be ashamed of. That is so beautiful. And just the level of emotion that you get to experience when you hold your child for the first time, there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so excited for you because, I mean, first of all, you're pregnant right now. I don't know if I've told you, congratulations.
Thank you.
But I mean, you're not, so this is something about me. I don't like to listen to people that say, oh, I can help you build your business, but I've never done it before. Or I can help you lose a ton of weight, although I've been skinny my whole life. Or I can do all these things. Like, you have firsthand experience of being a midwife, midwife apprentice. Like, you have seen things and done things, and then you've personally done it. Like, I can just see, especially with the podcast, you could just have stories forever from people that have been moms. I can't even imagine, like, the husbands talking to a husband about it, the partner. Like, what is your perspective on, this miracle as it happens? And then, like, the other family members. I mean, I know I've heard of people, that they have they have a ton of people from their family, like, just come and be there, like, to experience this whole thing because it's this. But anyway, I love the different angles of your message that you can take, and the fact that it just sounds like you have a really cool community forming, and I'm so excited for you and to see where all of this kind of takes off, like what direction it's going to go, because I mean, who knows, like when you have that spark inside of you, that feeling that you just know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know, like you said, how do I start a podcast? How do I even do this? But things are falling into place, and I just have a feeling that you're going to just have so many more opportunities open up for you, and so many more beautiful things are going to come out of this because it's a genuine thing. But okay, so I have one more question about everything that you're doing and everything that you've created here, and the stories that you're sharing and the stories that you're telling. Like, is this something that your friends and family, like, you said your husband's been supportive, like when you told them, I think this is what I want to do, like what was their initial reaction?
So my husband was, I think that he probably was like, okay, I don't know how you're going to do it, figure it out technology wise, because I can't even turn our TV on half the time. But he knows that I, number one, really like to talk, especially when it's something that I love. But number two, I have such a desire to help women and to reach people and to build community. So he wasn't surprised, and he was super excited with me as this has been growing. And he actually just started his own podcast on real estate. Yeah. So it's been really neat because he really helped me figure out GarageBand and figure out some of the things that I was using. And then now he's asking me for help, and it's like, oh, I finally know something that you don't know.
So cool.
But yes, he was very supportive. My family has been super supportive. Even though they don't necessarily, like my in-laws are the best example of this. Like I have really they have had to accept weird stuff about me from the very beginning. And it's fun because they'll like, I'll say something, they're like, oh, that's weird. And then of course, over time it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And so they were, I found out later after our first home birth, they never said anything to my face, but they were like a little bit worried about it. And then when they saw what it was like, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. That makes so much sense. And so they have shared my podcast, even though they're not listening to it probably. They really support it, and I have just loved that. And like I said, my mother-in-law watches, or maybe I didn't say this, maybe this was before we started interviewing, but my mother-in-law watches my daughter on Fridays so that I can do my interviews. And that is just, I don't know what I would do without that. So I have been very blessed to have people that truly understand and support what I'm doing, even if they don't understand the actual, content.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. Well, I'm so happy for you that you have that support system. So I want to move into our next segment of questions, and that's our Keeping It Real questions. We ask all of our guests these. So the first one I have is, what motivates you on days when everything is just super tough? You've spilt your coffee, you're running late, like, it's just, everything's just kind of been crazy. Like, what motivates you to keep going on those days?
Oh, you mean last Friday? What motivates me to keep going on last Friday? I have a great answer for this, actually. So I'm really glad that I had last Friday. It's these women. It's their stories. Because I had a whiny toddler Friday morning, and I had an interview that I had to edit that had just messed up audio-wise, my fault. And it was just kind of a mess. And then right after that, I had an interview with a mom who told me her birth story, and I was weeping. So that's it. It's these women and their stories, and getting those out for other people to hear and be inspired by.
That's so awesome. That's so beautiful. Okay, so my next question is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No. No. I would love to be a perfectionist, but I ain't got time for that. And right. If you were to be able to see my house right now, you'd be like, no, she's not a perfectionist. I let that go. So no.
Well, that's awesome. But, I like to tell people, if I ever get asked this question, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Like, I used to try to be perfect, and then I realized it's not working out for me. So I'm I'm pretty much, I'm not at all anymore. So I totally get it. And Katelyn and I have done like a video interview, and she can see like there's a room right behind me that's pretty put together. It is the only room in the house that is ever put together because that's like my sanity room. Other than that, oh no, you should see how many papers are on my kitchen counter right now. And that's like my thing. I hate papers. The kids bring home all the, just everything from school, all the artwork, and then just the stuff that you're like, I don't want to throw this away, but the kids will never want to see this again when they're 20 years old.
Right.
Like, you know, it's that kind of stuff. Like, So.
Yeah, I just, one day maybe I can have a maid. One day maybe.
Oh, that's what, girl, that is my life goal.
If my husband gets successful in something great or we win the lottery, I'll have a maid, and then maybe I'll have a nice house for
that's my life
one
goal,
day a week.
Girl. My life goal is to make enough money where I can hire a housekeeper.
Yes.
Okay, so my last question for you is, if you could go back and tell your younger self one piece of advice, what would you say to her?
Oh boy. There are so many things that I could say, but really, truly, it would be follow your passion. Just follow your passion, because you can't create it. You have to find it. And once you find it, you're good to go.
That's awesome. Katelyn, this has been such a great interview. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I have absolutely loved this, Crystal. It has been so much fun to talk to you. I'm so honored that you asked me to be on the show. Your show is awesome. And I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Oh, thank you so much. I love chatting with you. I'm so happy, you know, we finally got to virtually meet. But I want to know, how can our audience connect with you? Like, what ways? Do you have social media? Do you have a website? Like, what are the ways that we can listen to your podcast and connect with you?
Absolutely. So my website is myhappyhomebirth.com. And you can download the episodes straight from the website, or you can get them on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, just all the podcast kind of platforms. And then I'm really active on Instagram at Happy Homebirth Podcast. So at Happy Homebirth Podcast. And those are the two places that I'm really pretty active right now. So those are your best bets. And if you are interested in interviewing, if anybody out there happened to be like, oh, wait, I do home births and I love them, then you can email me at Katelyn@myhappyhomebirth.com. And that's Katelyn at myhappyhomebirth.com. And the last thing is that one thing that I've been doing is getting sponsorships lately. So if you have a business and you would be interested in sponsoring my podcast, come on over, because you've got a great, especially if you're trying to talk to moms. This is the place. It's all moms over here.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. And we're going to put all of those in the show notes, ways that you can contact Katelyn and just start following her journey. And if this is something, like if you're pregnant right now or you plan to have kids in the next few years, like explore this as an option. Like, I think it's so cool that, yeah, it sounds like something that would be kind of scary if you don't know what you're doing or who to look for a reference, but I'm hand-delivering Katelyn to y'all. Like, go ask her all the questions, go start following her, and continue to watch her journey unfold, because I know there's going to be amazing things ahead for you. So I'm so excited. Thank you again for coming on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Crystal.
Wasn't that interview so good? I knew that y'all were going to love Katelyn as much as I do, and I can't wait to celebrate her new bundle of joy, because she is expecting, and she's further along than she was whenever we did the initial interview. But I just can't wait to hear what experiences she has and what kind of updates she has for us on the podcast in the next few weeks and the few months and everything to come, because I know that she's on to something amazing. And going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, if you find something that people genuinely want to know about and you are like, you just have such a passion for it, it's almost like you can't shut up about it, it's what you want to talk about all the time, then you need to create a podcast around it. Like, I'm just going to call you out and challenge you to create a podcast about something that you're so passionate about, because Katelyn just has a servant's heart, right? Like, she just wants to help people understand that you don't have to be scared about having a home birth. And there are tools and resources and people out there that can help you and decide if this is the right thing for you and your family. And I just love her authenticity with everything that she says and everything that she does. And it was just such an awesome interview. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, because she's just so much fun. And I can't wait to see what awesome things she does in the future with her podcast. But that does it for this episode. So be sure to go check out the show notes. It's crystalprofit.com/episode 51. And check out Katelyn on social media. Go listen to her podcast. Subscribe to her podcast. Or if home birthing isn't your thing, then share it with someone who's going to be a first-time mom. Let them know that this is an option if they're interested in doing something like this. I think it's awesome. I think it's such a cool resource to have. And, you know, maybe I would have considered it whenever I first had my first son, but I didn't even know that it was a thing that was an option. So it's really cool to pass that on to the next generation of moms and tell them, hey, we have resources for you. I know where to tell you to go look if this is what you're into and this is what you want to do. But if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe to the show and hear the other fun things that we'll be talking about in the coming weeks. But that does it for today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.